but there is a hot topic on hand, and it's a topic that has dominated sports talk radio, I would say, for the last, 4 or 5 months. And it culminates today with the U.S. women's basketball team winning the gold medal. And we are talking about a person who's not even on the team that won the gold medal. But that's where this conversation goes. And I don't want it to be a manufactured Caitlin Clark conversation. But in this realm that we're in of social media and sports talk radio, there were many people who were cheering against Team USA today because they wanted Caitlin Clark on that team, and they wanted a reason to point to that Caitlin Clark should have been on that team. Mm-hmm. And that is where we are today. And if it wasn't for a foot on the line by Gabby Williams of France, which, by the way, if this was the Americans taking the shot that was attempted at the end, we would be talking about it. If this was the men's team, we would be talking about it. Mm-hmm. Kind of move past it because it happened to France.
Right.
But to be down 3 and then shoot a 3 with your foot on the line at the buzzer is a complete faux pas and a mental error that I understand the game action that's going on, but the one thing that you just can't do is take a 2 and shoot a 2, and that's what ended up happening. But I think there's a bigger discussion because over these last couple of weeks, and we've had shows on this network and articles written, Christine Brennan did a whole piece on how Caitlin Clark should have been a part of the U.S. women's national team. Mm-hmm. Now that the U.S. has gold, is the U.S. vindicated in keeping her off of that team?
Yeah. There's vindication that happens by winning, obviously. The ultimate goal in the Olympics is to win gold. They won gold, so I think they're okay with that. Obviously, there are people and detractors who, from the beginning, thought that Caitlin Clark should be on that team, and that's all fine and dandy. We all understand that conversation, but the conversation should be the USA women has now won 8 Olympic gold medals in a row. Their dominance has been cemented. And yes, a big what if. A big what if France wins that game and USA loses. And then this conversation would be on an astronomically different plane.
Does it make your skin itch? Do you curl up? Does your spine twitch when I even thought of bringing up Caitlin Clark as part of this conversation after this moment where the United States women survive? You mentioned when their 8th straight gold medal. Diana Taurasi wins her 6th gold medal. Does any of that conversation irk you at all? Does the Caitlin Clark conversation at this point irk you?
At this point right now,
yes. As
this just unfolded, no.
12:05 Eastern, 9:05 Pacific.
No, it would have been a fair conversation, a fair, revisit to what a lot of people thought should have been the case anyway. So it doesn't irk me right now, but if this was yesterday, I would have been completely irked then. But right now, no.
Yeah, I think that this is a conversation that people would have, if the U.S. did not have it, would have been the lead topic on social media, on debate shows, on TV shows, and then in our medium here of sports talk radio. I'm going to say a couple of things. In Christine Brennan's piece that she wrote for USA Today was one of, after the U.S. won the silver medal, won their semifinal game in the Olympic Games. After the game, there were 18 reporters waiting for the U.S. women's team, and she felt that was too little.
Right.
18 media members. She also pointed to the fact that she had spoken with a journalist from Brazil who was surprised that Caitlin Clark wasn't on the Olympic team, and she had spoken with an Australian journalist who felt the same way, that they were all interested in talking with Caitlin Clark, and that is why USA Basketball dropped the ball. So do you think that the USA Basketball, because I don't think we need to serve Australia and serve Brazil, and I know what her point is that Caitlin Clark is a global name, or you have an opportunity to make women's basketball that global sport by her being there. Do you think that was the reason that she should have been on the U.S. Olympic team? Because I don't feel that's the reason she should have been on the U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been the only reason she would have been on the
For the
Olympic
global,
team.
okay.
For sure. It wouldn't have been because of the play. I think, obviously, it shows that they had enough to win. They got it done. So as far as her being on that team to make that team a better team, or the outcome would have been different in a more grandiose way for the USA women's basketball team, I don't think that would have been the case for me personally.
I look at it as, and I feel Caitlin Clark on that U.S. Olympic team would have been good for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
And when she was left off, I was not hurt by it. I was not mad about it. I was not furious about it. I understand this global reach, and maybe if that was the opportunity, maybe the media members double if Caitlin Clark is there.
Sure.
I don't know. It's an answer that we don't know. I felt that if USA Basketball truly wanted to continue this dominance, and we saw today how France is caught up. I heard on the broadcast that the previous gold medal games, the average margin of victory was 23 points for the U.S., so it's pure dominance, but today we saw a team play even. Now it helped. France is their home country, had home court advantage with the fans there, but still, they've never been this close in a game in the Olympics until today, during this stretch of success that they've had. It's just the point, Kerry, that I feel Caitlin Clark and even Angel Reese, or another young player, could have been put on that team to help them learn the U.S. Olympic basketball way and then carry that torch. Sure. I think we've talked about it. You've heard me say it before. If there's a way of figuring out a way to passing the torch to a younger generation, sure, maybe they're not going to play. Tell you what, I think Anthony Edwards has now a much better appreciation for USA basketball. And here was a guy who got to watch Steph Curry and Devin Booker and LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid play those meaningful minutes in the final two games that they had. I feel that experience is probably better for him than him leading them in scoring, during group play or having the sort of games that he had. Like that's your experience that you will now carry on, and now you have the torch for the next generation. I felt you could have done that with Caitlin Clark. I didn't think that she should have been there just because she's Caitlin Clark and needed to popularize basketball. That's been my point. But I will also say this, the two things with Caitlin Clark. Number one, I actually needed a break. I needed a break from Caitlin Clark conversation. And again, it's nothing about her.
Me too, yes.
And I know it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth as we're talking about it here, but I don't feel like I've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks.
Right.
It was just up until this point where now the U.S. is on the ropes, and I feel that the Caitlin Clark supporters were just waiting for Team USA to fall for their opportunity to pounce in.
Right.
I think it's been nice. I think Caitlin Clark's probably enjoyed it. Having a nice 2-3 weeks, off of not having her day job, and now you get back to it. I needed a break from the conversation because after a while it was just becoming too much. And so I needed that break. And the other side of the coin is if the U.S. would have lost today and fell to France, you know who I would have felt sorry for? Caitlin Clark. How would those 12 players on Team USA feel that when they come home, all the people are talking about is, well, you didn't win because of Caitlin Clark?
That's true.
Talk about resentment.
Yeah.
Talk about the feeling. Like, there's no one more relieved, I think, today that the U.S. won gold than Caitlin Clark because of all of the conversation that would have happened, none of which was her fault. But if the U.S. loses today, there is, I think, an enormous resentment. And maybe the growth that we've had over this past season in the WNBA, we would go 2 or 3 steps back because I guarantee you that, Diana Taurasi, who's going for her 6th gold medal, A'ja Wilson, who's been dominant in these games, Breanna Stewart's been dominant in these games. The last thing that they want to hear is for all the work that they put in, well, you would have needed Caitlin Clark. I think it would have taken everything and would have put it 3 steps back, and Caitlin Clark would have been actually the ultimate victim if Team USA would have lost today.
That's a great point, Dan. She definitely would have, but also the vitriol from the fans of hers and supporters of hers would have been even more loud.
Yes.
And so the ability to have any type of homeostasis between both sides, which we talked about before, is obviously in life, like there are people that stand on sides of the fences, whatever that side is, and you're not able to have conversation with the other or be able to hear the other because of how loud your stance is. And so this definitely would have put that place or stoked that fire again. And so I agree with you 100%. I think this time was very much needed for Caitlin. And the fact that the gold medal game was won by the USA absolutely supports that growth. And I think the ability for now all of them to come together and just play basketball this second part of the season. And, that's a great point.
I think it's difficult as well to carry over momentum from one Olympics to another. I mean, heck, we just had a 3-year break, and it was impossible. To have that 4-year break, it's just really not a thing. There's not like a way that you can carry momentum over from something. You just have to be good every single year, and I think that's what the U.S. women's basketball team does. They're just better than everybody. Maybe their game has to be a little bit different. France wasn't a great three-point shooting team, and I think they made one in the fourth quarter. It was Brick City for a while.
Yeah.
But the U.S. was not based. That's not what they do. Now when you see how the game has changed, and you see how it's taken over the men's game, and you saw what Steph Curry did on Saturday,
right?
Now you look at that aspect, and maybe that's needed for Team USA. Maybe they didn't really have that aspect of the true three-point shooting, or never felt the need to rely on it because of how Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart were. Maybe now that changes things. But I think the close game, Kerry, today, the almost losing, also helps the U.S. women, where now we're not like, all right, here's the cakewalk. Because there's not going to be great momentum, but when we play again in 2028, it's not going to be as much of a foregone conclusion, because we felt it was a foregone conclusion at the beginning, because there wasn't even an argument of like, well, you're going to win gold anyway. You might as well put Caitlin Clark on the team. What does she matter? Like,
right.
So now at least playing a close game and showing that maybe the world is caught up will make the games a little bit more interesting in 2028, and maybe we won't be having just 18 reporters in a semifinal game. Maybe there will be more, because now we feel some of the world is caught up, which, by the way, not the fault of the United States.
Right. No, it's beautiful. It's like you said, to be able to win and go through adversity, obviously, is the best thing for any team, and for a team that's been so dominant the way that Team USA, that the women's team has been. To have a little bit of a scare helps you when you win, because now they can look at that, like you said, add some pieces that they need. They need some three-point shooting. They need some youth, all the things that Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese could have added to that team. So you can kind of see the formula, but also know that, like you said, it's not a foregone conclusion anymore. We have to literally get the best players that we can on this team, and maybe that takes away from a swan song situation from Diana Taurasi or people in the future, right? So you'll probably change that and attack that a little bit differently.